He thought he was clever, hiding an envelope under my truck. He wasn't hiding money. He was hiding proof that could destroy us both. And the second I touched it, I realized some secrets are deadly. Would you risk the truth? Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. My son thought I didn't notice when he hid an envelope under my truck dashboard. I didn't mean to find the envelope. That's the part that still haunts me, how ordinary the moment was. No thunder, no dramatic music. Just a quiet click of my truck door and the faint smell of engine oil baked into old leather seats. I was running late that morning. The sky of our small town was still gray, the kind of gray that feels unfinished, like God hadn't decided yet whether the day deserved sunlight. I slid into the driver's seat of my aging pickup, tossed my thermos onto the passenger side, and reached down to adjust the parking brake. That's when my fingers brushed against paper. Not loose receipts. Not the usual clutter. Something thicker. Folded. Hidden. I froze. For a split second, I told myself it was nothing. Probably a flyer, maybe insurance paperwork that had slipped loose. But my hand had already curled around the edge of it, and instinct told me what my mind was trying to deny. Someone had hidden this. Slowly, I leaned down, craning my neck under the dashboard. Wedged behind a loose panel, right where the wiring met the metal frame, was a brown envelope. Plain. No writing. No stamp. But I knew immediately who it belonged to. My son, Ethan, 16 years old. Quiet lately. Too quiet. I pulled the envelope out and held it in my lap. It felt heavier than it should have. Not in weight, but in meaning. The kind of heaviness that settles in your chest before you even know why. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I sat there with my hands resting on my knees, staring at the cracked windshield, replaying the memory from the night before. Ethan leaning into the truck after dinner. Ethan pretending to look for his phone charger. Ethan glancing over his shoulder when he thought I wasn't watching. I had noticed. Parents always do, at least the ones who are paying attention. But noticing is different from understanding. I slipped the envelope into my jacket pocket, started the engine, and drove to work like nothing had happened. Like my entire world hadn't just shifted off its axis. All morning, I couldn't focus. The hum of machines at the auto shop faded into background noise as my mind raced. What could my son possibly be hiding in my truck? Money? A letter? Something illegal? Something dangerous? Always. Something that said he didn't trust me anymore. I raised Ethan alone after his mother passed. 12 years of scraped knees, late-night fevers, school plays, and awkward father-son talks. I'd always believed we were close. Not perfect, but honest. Had I been wrong? By lunchtime, the envelope felt like it was burning a hole through my jacket. I didn't open it then either. I wasn't ready to see what it might say about my son, or about me. When I got home that evening, Ethan was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with his homework spread out in front of him. He looked up when I walked in, his eyes flicking, just for a second, to my jacket. That second told me everything. He knew the envelope was gone. "Hey, Dad," he said, forcing a casual tone. "Hey," I replied, matching it. We moved around each other carefully that night, like two people pretending not to see the crack forming in the ice beneath their feet. He talked about school. I nodded. I asked about his math test. He answered. But neither of us mentioned the envelope. After dinner, Ethan disappeared into his room. I waited until the house went quiet, then sat alone on the edge of my bed, the envelope resting in my hands. This time, I opened it. Inside were several folded papers and a small stack of cash, more money than I'd ever given him at once. My heart thudded as I unfolded the first page. My breath caught. It wasn't what I expected. It was a letter, written in Ethan's handwriting, and the first line shattered the room around me. "Dad, if you're reading this, then I messed up. Or maybe I finally did the right thing." My hands began to shake. The letter spoke of secrets, of fear, of a mistake Ethan had made months ago, one he thought he could fix on his own. He wrote about someone older, someone persuasive, Someone who had offered him a way out of a problem he didn't know how to tell me about. Every sentence tightened the knot in my chest. And then came the line that made my vision blur. I hid this in your truck because it's the only place I thought would be safe, and the only place I hoped you'd find it if I didn't come back. I dropped the letter. Didn't come back. My mind screamed with 1,000 questions, but one rose above the rest, louder, sharper, more terrifying than all the others combined. Where was my son planning to go? I grabbed my keys, the letter, the envelope, everything, and rushed back to the truck. But instead of putting the envelope back where I found it, I moved it. I slid it into the glove compartment, locked it, like that would somehow lock away the fear flooding my chest. Because if Ethan thought I hadn't noticed, then he had no idea what I was willing to do to protect him. Before we go any further, what do you think was in that envelope? Was Ethan running from something or toward it? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is only the beginning. The house had never felt so empty. Even with Ethan's bedroom light still glowing faintly under his door, the silence pressing on me from every wall. I sat in my truck for a long time that night, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring at nothing while everything replayed in my head. 16 years. 16 years of believing I knew my son. Ethan James Carter had been born on a humid August afternoon, screaming like he was angry at the world for dragging him into it. His mother, Lila, laughed through her tears and said, "He's got your lungs." I didn't know then that I'd lose her 5 years later to a sudden illness, or that the sound of my son breathing in his sleep would become the most reassuring thing in my life. After Lila died, it was just us. No grandparents nearby. No siblings. Just a grieving man learning how to braid hair for school pictures, pack lunches that didn't come back untouched, and explain to a small boy why Mommy wasn't coming home. We grew up together in a way. Him into a young man, me into a quieter, more careful version of myself. Our life wasn't fancy, but it was steady. I worked at Miller's auto shop 6 days a week. Ethan went to school, played basketball for a while, quit when it stopped being fun, then picked up sketching in the evenings. He was observant, sensitive, the kind of kid teachers described as polite and thoughtful. The kind of kid you don't expect to be hiding envelopes. I finally went inside around midnight. The house creaked as I moved through it, every familiar sound suddenly suspicious. I stood outside Ethan's door for a moment, listening. Music played softly inside, some low, melancholic tune I didn't recognize. He was awake. I knocked once. "Yeah." His voice cracked slightly. "Just checking on you," I said. "Everything okay?" A pause. Then, "Yeah, just tired." I wanted to push. To say his name the way I used when he was little and scared of thunderstorms. To tell him I knew something was wrong, and that he didn't have to carry it alone. But fear does strange things to parents. It makes you hesitate when you should speak. It convinces you that one wrong word could push your child further away. "All right," I said instead. "Don't stay up too late." "Okay, Dad." I walked away feeling like I'd failed some invisible test. The next few days passed in a strange limbo. Ethan went to school. I went to work. We exchanged polite conversations and shared meals that tasted like cardboard. All the while, the envelope sat locked in my glove compartment, its contents echoing in my head. I reread the letter every night. Not all at once, just pieces. Like my heart could only handle so much at a time. Ethan wrote about feeling trapped, about making a decision he thought was harmless at first, about owing someone something he didn't have. He never named the person directly, but he described them enough for me to picture a man who smiled too easily and listened too closely. A man who noticed a lonely teenager. The cash in the envelope wasn't stolen from me. I recognized the bills, crumpled, small denominations. Lawn mowing money, odd jobs, every dollar Ethan had earned and saved over the last year. He was trying to fix something. On his own, and that realization hurt more than the fear. Because it meant somewhere along the way, my son had decided I couldn't help him. Or worse, that telling me would make things worse. I started watching more closely. Ethan checked his phone constantly now, angling the screen away when I entered the room. He flinched whenever a car slowed down outside the house. Once, I caught him staring at the truck with a strange expression, half hope, half dread. At work, I confided in no one. But old Frank Miller noticed my distraction. "You all right, Carter?" he asked, wiping grease from his hands. "You've tightened that same bolt 3 times." "Yeah, I lied. Just tired." Frank studied me for a moment, the way men do when they recognize worry but don't know how to name it. "Teenage kid." I nodded. He sighed. "They carry more than we think." That night, I finally did something I'd been avoiding. I opened Ethan's school backpack while he was in the shower. I hated myself for it, but fear outweighed guilt. Inside, among notebooks and crumpled worksheets, I found a folded piece of paper with an address scribbled on it. No name, just a place. It wasn't far. An old warehouse district on the edge of town, mostly abandoned since a factory shut down years ago. My stomach twisted. Whatever Ethan was involved in, it was closer than I'd hoped. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Then I sat on the couch, staring at the front door, realizing something that made my chest ache. The life I thought I knew, the simple rhythm of work, school, dinner, sleep, had been an illusion. My son was standing at the edge of something dangerous, and he thought he was standing there alone. The knock came at 6:47 a.m. Not loud, not urgent, just 3 slow, deliberate taps on the front door. I was already awake. I'd barely slept, my mind circling the same questions over and over like a dog guarding a wound. When the knock sounded, my body reacted before my thoughts did. I was on my feet instantly, heart pounding, every nerve screaming that this was it, that whatever Ethan had been trying to outrun had finally caught up to us. "Dad!" Ethan's voice drifted down the hallway. Sleepy, unaware. "You getting that?" "Stay in your room," I said, sharper than I meant to. There was a pause. "Why?" "Just stay." I moved toward the door quietly, every step measured. Through the narrow glass panel beside it, I saw a man standing on the porch. Mid-30s, maybe early 40s. Clean jacket, calm posture, hands visible. The kind of man who knew exactly how non-threatening he looked. The kind of man who scared me more than someone who didn't bother hiding it. I opened the door just enough to block the view inside. "Yes." He smiled, warm, practiced. "Morning. Is Ethan home?" My stomach dropped. "Who's asking?" "Name's Marcus," he said easily. "I'm a friend." "No," I replied. "You're not." Marcus didn't flinch. He glanced past me, toward the hallway, as if he could sense Ethan's presence through the walls. "Look," he said softly, lowering his voice, "I don't want to cause trouble. I just need to talk to him." "Is a minor," I snapped. "You can talk to me." That smile faded just a fraction. "This really isn't your business." That was the moment something inside me hardened. "Everything involving my son is my business," I said. "So you can either explain yourself right now, or you can leave." For a split second, I thought he might argue. Instead, Marcus nodded slowly. "Fair enough," he said. "Ethan and I had an agreement. He owes me something. I'm just here to remind him." My hands clenched into fists. "An agreement?" I repeated, with a 16-year-old. Marcus shrugged. "He came to me, needed help. I provided it." And now, Marcus said, eyes steady, "It's time to settle up." Behind me, a floorboard creaked. Ethan. I felt him before I saw him, standing at the end of the hallway, pale, frozen, eyes locked on the man at the door. "Ethan," I said without turning, "go back to your room." "Dad," his voice shook. "It's okay. I can talk to him." "No," I said, louder now. "You don't have to talk to anyone." Marcus raised his hand slightly, a gesture of peace. "See? He understands. I'll be quick." I stepped fully outside and closed the door behind me. Marcus's eyebrows lifted. "Protective. I respect that." "You're done here," I said. "Whatever you think my son owes you, it's over." His gaze sharpened. "Is that so?" "Yes." "Because from where I'm standing," he said calmly, "your son took money, promised a return, and disappeared." My chest tightened. Here's a kid. Here's a person who made a choice. I stared at him, the morning air cold against my skin. How much? Marcus studied me for a moment, as if weighing how much truth to offer. 2,000, he said. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. $2,000. Enough to ruin a teenager's peace. Enough to invite a stranger to my doorstep. I can pay you, I said without hesitation. Marcus shook his head. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? He leaned in slightly. Ethan finishes what he started, or things get uncomfortable. Something snapped. You leave now, I said, voice low, and if you ever come near my son again, I'll involve the police. Marcus straightened, the smile returning, thinner this time. You could, he said, but then you'd have to explain what Ethan was doing for me. My breath caught. What was he doing? Marcus's eyes flicked to the door behind me. Ask him. Then he stepped back, raised 2 fingers in a casual salute, and walked away down the driveway. I stood there long after he was gone, the echo of his words ringing in my ears. When I went back inside, Ethan was sitting on the couch, head in his hands. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I didn't think he'd come here. I sat across from him, every ounce of anger buried beneath fear and love. What did you do, son? He looked up at me, eyes red, voice barely audible. I tried to fix a mistake, he said, and I made it worse. Before we go any further, if you were in my place, would you confront the truth immediately or try to protect your child from it? Tell me what you would do in the comments, because this choice changes everything. Ethan didn't speak right away. He just sat there, shoulders slumped, staring at the floor like it might open up and swallow him whole. I waited. For once, I didn't rush him. I'd learned over the years that silence can be louder than shouting, especially with kids who already feel like they've disappointed you. I didn't steal, he said finally. I swear. I didn't say you did, I replied gently. But that's what this looks like, he whispered. That's what he wants you to think. He rubbed his palms against his jeans, a nervous habit he'd had since childhood. My heart broke a little watching it. This was the same kid who used to run to me after nightmares, convinced monsters lived under his bed. Start from the beginning, I said. All of it. Ethan took a deep breath. It started last semester, he said, when I almost failed math. That surprised me. Math had never been his strongest subject, but failing? That was new. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry, he continued quickly. I thought I could fix it. I needed tutoring, but it was expensive, and I didn't want to ask you for more money. You already work so hard. Guilt hit me like a punch to the chest. So you met Marcus, I said. Ethan nodded slowly. He hangs around the community center sometimes. Acts like he's helping kids. He overheard me talking about needing money and said he had a way. A familiar chill crept down my spine. What kind of way? At first, it sounded harmless, Ethan said. Just errands. Delivering packages. Picking things up. He said it was legal. He said it was easy. And you believed him. I wanted to, Ethan admitted. I thought if I could just make enough to pay for tutoring, everything would go back to normal. I closed my eyes briefly. What was in the packages? I asked. Ethan shook his head. I never opened them. He told me not to. Said curiosity could get people hurt. That word, hurt, hung heavy between us. How many times? I asked. 4, Ethan replied. Then I got scared. One of the guys he worked with got arrested. I panicked. I told Marcus I was done. And that's when the debt appeared, I said. Ethan nodded again. He said I'd wasted his time, that I owed him for a lost opportunity. $2,000. My jaw tightened. So you started saving, I said, thinking of the envelope, planning to disappear if you couldn't pay. Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. I didn't want to disappear forever, he said. Just long enough to figure it out. I didn't want him coming here again. I didn't want you dragged into it. That was the moment I understood something painful and profound. My son hadn't hidden the envelope because he didn't trust me. He'd hidden it because he was trying to protect me. The next few days were a blur of tension and half-truths. Ethan went to school, but I could tell he wasn't really there. Every time a car slowed outside the house, he stiffened. Every unknown number on his phone made him flinch. I started doing my own digging. The warehouse district address I'd found in his backpack, I drove past it one evening after work. The buildings were run down, graffiti-stained, mostly abandoned, but one warehouse had lights on, cars coming and going. I didn't stop. I didn't confront anyone. Not yet. At work, I asked Frank if he'd heard of a guy named Marcus running errands for cash. Frank's face darkened. "Stay away from that mess," he said immediately. "That crowd doesn't play fair." That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let my son face this alone, not anymore. But the more I learned, the clearer it became, Marcus wasn't just a man asking for money. He was a gatekeeper. And Ethan had stepped somewhere he was never meant to be. The truth didn't arrive with sirens or shouting. It came quietly, on a Tuesday afternoon, folded into a moment I almost ignored. I was at work when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You should come see this yourself." No name, no explanation, just a location pin. My first instinct was to delete it. Marcus had already made his point. I wasn't going to play his games. But something about the timing, about the calm confidence of the message, set my nerves on edge. I told Frank I needed the rest of the day off and drove. The pin led me not to the warehouse district, but to the community center, the same place Ethan said Marcus helped kids. I parked across the street and sat there for a long moment, watching the entrance. Parents came and went. Kids laughed. It looked harmless. Safe. That was the problem. Inside, the air smelled of cleaning solution and old gym mats. Posters about youth programs lined the walls. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined the danger until I saw Marcus standing near the back hallway, talking to a group of teenagers. He spotted me immediately. His smile was slow. "Satisfied. Glad you came," he said as he approached. "Didn't think you would." "What is this?" I asked. "Why am I here?" "To show you something," he replied, "since you seem so interested in protecting your son." He led me down the hallway to a small office. On the desk sat a stack of folders. "Records," Marcus said. "Schedules. Deliveries." I stared at him. "You're running this out of a community center." "Smart, right?" he said lightly. "People trust places like this." My fist clenched. Where does Ethan fit into this? I asked. Marcus opened one of the folders and slid it toward me. Ethan's name stared back at me. Not just his name. Photos. Dates. Times. Routes. My breath hitched. "You kept files on him." "On everyone," Marcus replied. "That's how I keep people honest." I flipped through the pages, my hands shaking. Then I saw it. A note scribbled in the margin, written in handwriting I recognized instantly. "Do not push him further. Kid has a conscience." I looked up sharply. "Who wrote this?" Marcus hesitated. Just for a second. "Someone who used to work with me," he said. "Someone who didn't have the stomach for it." The room seemed to tilt. "Someone Ethan knows." I pressed. Marcus exhaled slowly. "You really want the truth?" "Yes." Marcus leaned back against the desk. "Your son didn't just quit, Mr. Carter. He reported one of my guys." My heart stopped. "He what?" "Anonymous tip," Marcus said, "led to that arrest he mentioned. That's why I'm irritated." I staggered back a step. Ethan hadn't just been scared. He'd done the right thing. "He tried to stop you," I said. Marcus's eyes hardened. "He tried to fix his mistake. And you're punishing him for it." "I'm reminding him there are consequences," Marcus said calmly. Something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. This wasn't about money. It was about control. Marcus stepped closer. "Here's what's going to happen," he said. "Ethan comes back, finishes a few jobs. Debt erased. Clean slate." "No," I said without hesitation. Marcus tilted his head. "Then things get complicated." I met his gaze. "For you." For the first time since I'd met him, Marcus looked uncertain. "You think you have leverage," I continued. But you walked me into a building full of witnesses and showed me evidence of crime. His jaw tightened. You don't understand how this works, he said. I do, I replied. Better than you think. I turned and walked out before he could respond. That night, I told Ethan everything. He didn't speak when I finished. He just stared at his hands, tears slipping down his cheeks. I tried to do the right thing, he whispered. I know, I said, pulling him into a hug, and I'm proud of you. But pride didn't erase danger, because Marcus wouldn't let this go quietly. And now, he knew I knew. I wish I could say that doing the right thing brought immediate peace. It didn't. It brought consequences. The first sign was small, so small I almost dismissed it. The next morning, Ethan's bike was gone. Not misplaced. Not borrowed. Gone. The lock lay on the driveway, cleanly cut, the metal edges still shining like a warning. Ethan stood over it, breathing hard, eyes wide. He knows, Ethan whispered. I wrapped an arm around his shoulders, forcing calm into my voice. It's just intimidation. That's all. But my heart knew better. That afternoon, my truck wouldn't start. The mechanic in me recognized sabotage instantly. Wires tampered with, not broken enough to strand me completely, just enough to remind me how fragile things were. And that evening, a note appeared on our front porch. No envelope this time. No pretense. Just a single line written in thick black ink. You moved something that wasn't yours. Ethan read it over my shoulder and crumpled. I'm sorry, he said again. I should have just kept my mouth shut. I turned him to face me, gripping his shoulders firmly. Listen to me. You did the right thing. Do you hear me? The right thing. But look what it's doing to you, he said, tears spilling freely now. To us. That was the worst part. Not the fear, the doubt. That night, I lay awake replaying every decision I'd made since finding the envelope. I'd thought confronting Marcus would protect us, that shining light on the truth would scare him off. I'd underestimated how men like him operated. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Last chance. Bring the kid back, or I start taking things you can't replace. My hands trembled. I didn't reply. Instead, I did something I should have done sooner. I went to the police. Sitting in that sterile room, explaining everything, packages, threats, the community center, I felt exposed, weak, like I was betraying some unspoken rule about handling your own problems. The officer listened carefully, took notes, nodded. Then he sighed. Without direct evidence, he said, "Were your son willing to testify? There's not much we can do yet." Yet, that word crushed me. We were sent home with a case number and advice to stay vigilant. That night, Ethan packed a bag. I found him at midnight, stuffing clothes into his backpack with shaking hands. "What are you doing?" I asked. "I'm leaving," he said, "just for a while. If I'm not here, he can't use me." "No," I said immediately. "You're not going anywhere." "You can't protect me forever," Ethan snapped, the fear finally boiling over into anger. "You already tried, and look where it got us." His words cut deep because part of me feared they were true. "I won't let him win," I said quietly. Ethan slumped onto the bed. "I'm so tired, Dad." I sat beside him, the weight of everything pressing down on my chest. So was I. By morning, it felt like we were trapped, too visible to run, too powerless to fight. I stood in the kitchen staring at the envelope I'd moved days ago, now resting on the counter like a cursed object. I'd thought hiding it would protect us. All it had done was make Marcus angry. For the first time since this began, a dark thought crept in, one that terrified me more than Marcus ever could. What if I couldn't keep my son safe? The breakthrough didn't come from strength. It came from exhaustion, from the kind of bone-deep tiredness that strips away fear and leaves only truth behind. It was just after dawn when I heard Ethan crying. Not loud, not dramatic. The quiet, broken kind of sobbing that sounds like someone trying not to fall apart. I found him sitting on the floor of his room, back against the bed, his backpack still half-packed beside him. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered when he saw me. "I feel like everything I touch breaks." I sat down on the floor with him. No lectures. No plans. Just a father sitting with his son in the wreckage of fear. You know what your mom used to say? I murmured. Ethan shook his head. She used to say, when fear gets loud, truth has to get louder. He sniffed. What does that even mean? It means hiding almost always makes things worse, I said. And courage doesn't always look like fighting. Sometimes it looks like standing still and telling the whole truth. Ethan wiped his eyes. I already told the police everything. Not everything, I said gently. He looked up. You didn't tell them about the envelope, I continued. About the cash. About how you were planning to disappear. Ethan's face fell. I didn't want them to think I was guilty. And I didn't want to believe how scared you were, I admitted. So I moved it instead of facing it. That was the moment it clicked for both of us. The envelope wasn't evidence of wrongdoing. It was evidence of fear and of intent to do better. And fear loses its power when it's fully seen. By noon, we were back at the police station. This time, Ethan spoke first. He told them everything. Not just the safe parts. Not just the parts that made him look brave. He talked about the packages, the pressure, the threats, the envelope, the plan to leave. He cried. I cried. And something changed. The officer excused himself and returned with a detective this time. Older, sharper eyes, the kind that missed nothing. You did the right thing coming back, she said. This fills in some gaps. She explained carefully, calmly. Marcus wasn't small time. He was already under investigation, but they'd be missing a key piece, someone inside his operation willing to talk openly, with proof of coercion. Ethan wasn't a suspect. He was a witness. And suddenly, we weren't powerless anymore. That evening, we were placed under temporary protective measures. Nothing dramatic, no flashing lights, but enough to send a message. We went home together. For the first time in weeks, the house didn't feel like it was holding its breath. Ethan sat at the kitchen table doing homework while I cooked dinner. Ordinary sounds, ordinary moments. And yet, everything was different, because fear was no longer driving us. Truth was. Before we move into what happens next, let me ask you this. Have you ever stayed silent out of fear, only to realize later that truth was the safest choice all along? Share your thoughts in the comments. The call came 3 days later. I was at work, elbow deep in an engine, when my phone vibrated in my pocket. The number on the screen belonged to the detective. My hands went numb before I even answered. Mr. Carter, she said, her voice steady, professional. We're moving. Now. Time slowed. What about my son? I asked immediately. His safe, she replied. We've been monitoring Marcus closely since Ethan's statement. He made a mistake this morning. What kind of mistake? He reached out again. My grip tightened on the phone. Marcus hadn't let go. According to the detective, Marcus had tried to pressure another teenager, someone younger than Ethan, using the same tactics. Same calm voice. Same threats disguised as opportunity. But this time, law enforcement was already listening. They're at the warehouse district, she said. We'd like you and Ethan to stay where you are. But fate had other plans. As I hung up, a familiar car rolled slowly past the auto shop. Marcus's car. He didn't stop, didn't wave, just drove by, slow enough for me to see his eyes flick toward the garage. Cold, focused. He knew. I locked up early and drove straight home, my heart pounding with every mile. When I pulled into the driveway, Ethan was already on the porch, phone in hand, face pale. He texted me. He said, my stomach dropped. What did he say? Ethan showed me the screen. You don't get to walk away from me. That was it. No more games. No more waiting. Within minutes, unmarked cars appeared at the end of our street. Officers approached quietly, efficiently. One stayed with us while the others moved. We watched from the living room window as Marcus's car turned the corner again, this time faster. The house was quiet again. Not the heavy, tense quiet of fear, but the gentle, warm quiet of relief. Ethan and I sat on the porch that evening, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows across the yard. He kicked at a pebble, then looked up at me. Dad, he said softly. I kept the envelope all these weeks, and I think I understand now why you moved it. I reached over and picked it up from the table. The brown envelope, once a symbol of fear, secrecy, and danger, now felt different in my hands. It wasn't just casual letters, I said. It was a signal, a cry for help, and I didn't ignore it, even if I handled it the wrong way at first. Ethan nodded, eyes glistening. I was scared. Dad, I didn't know who to trust. But I should have told you everything sooner. I thought I had to fix it alone. You were brave in your own way, I said. Not because you did everything perfectly, but because you tried to do the right thing, even when it was terrifying. We sat together as the sky turned deep indigo, stars beginning to sprinkle above. It felt like the first real moment of peace in weeks. In the days that followed, life slowly returned to normal. Ethan went back to school with a newfound confidence. The weight of secrecy lifted from his shoulders. He even laughed more, lightly, freely, the way I'd been missing for weeks. I went back to Wake, my focus sharp again, every task reminding me that we had survived something that could have destroyed us. The envelope stayed on my desk at home for a while, not hidden this time, a reminder of the lesson it carried. That courage isn't always loud, that fear can be acknowledged and confronted, and that trust between a parent and child can weather storms that seem impossible. Weeks later, Ethan and I sat in the driveway, sipping iced tea. He turned to me and grinned. Dad, I think I've earned a reward for surviving all that drama. I laughed. You've earned a lifetime of respect. That's enough. He rolled his eyes, but the smile never left his face. And for the first time since all of this began, I felt it, the quiet certainty that we were stronger than we knew together. Because sometimes the envelope you hide is never about the paper inside. It's about the love, trust, and courage it uncovers. Before we part, here's something to reflect on. Have you ever discovered that the things we fear most can actually reveal our greatest strength? Share your story in the comments below. And remember, courage doesn't mean never being scared. It means facing your fear with the people you love most by your side. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazy and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.